Hey guys, welcome to Drake's Kitchen. Today we're making an Asiago crusted steak with shallot butter and tomato caprice salad. So let's start. First we'll start with the steak. Well actually, most importantly is we gotta heat the pan. Turn that sucker on high heat. We're gonna sear it nice and hot, give it that good crust. The best part about every steak is always getting a good crust. You gotta make sure to have it. Good crust, and in order to do that you need a well-marbled steak. First step, pat it dry. There's two options when you have a steak. You can have one that's frozen or refrigerated. A lot of people always ask that question. I always tell them it depends. If you freeze it, you got to freeze it the right way. You got to pat it dry, get all the moisture out, and then you got to freeze it as quick as possible, so usually like a deep freeze. And then when you're going to put that on the pan, you put it on cold. You don't want to thaw it out. If you do thaw it out, you need to make sure you pat it dry again. Patting it dry is good for getting out the moisture. That's the whole point of getting the crust, is when that crust is formed, that's after the moisture leaves. So while that pan's heating, another thing I know a lot of people ask is, what kind of pan? I choose cast iron because it maintains the heat very well. Right here, cast iron. It's well seasoned right now. I'm going to put some clarified butter on that. A lot of people ask why not coconut oil or canola oil. Coconut oil is a good substitute. Also beef grease or bacon grease, they're very good. The reason why they're good is they have the melt in your mouth feel, is with the saturated fat in it. That's what you're looking for. That's why when you're looking at a steak you want to look for the well marbled, because with these clumps of the fat, it actually contributes to the melt in your mouth feel, because it produces a lot of saturated fat. So when you're doing this, you put about a tablespoon of clarified butter or coconut oil if that's your choice. You season the pan with that. Let that melt out and coat the whole pan. Make sure it evenly coats it. We're just going to leave this spoon here a little bit. Don't leave it too long or the sucker will get hot. Another people say is a vegan option. Well, first I say, why are you cooking steaks when you're a vegan? But it goes for different things. To get the saturated fat, to get that melt in your mouth feel, a good option is to use coconut oil. That's my go-to right there. But the only problem with coconut oil, it has a hint of a coconut taste, but if that's not your problem, go for it. So we're going to start with the steak. You see how we have like a nice smoke going. We're going to go ahead and salt the pan. I like to use pretzel salt. Pretzel salt is not as fine of a salt. As you can see, it's kind of granulated. It's more clumpy. It actually doesn't absorb into the steak as strong as a fine salt would do. With a fine salt, it's going to create a more salty taste on the steak, and a lot of times it's over salted. So we patted the steak dry. We're going to find a good location for it. Let's go right in the center. You hear that sear? That's what we're looking for. That's what you want. You don't want a no pan or a dry no sound. You want that sear. The sear is what you're looking for. It's going to give it that good crust. So we're going to let it sit there. Don't touch it. Very important. You got to let that crust form. What I like to do is I season it with some salt, pepper, right here. This is on top. Then we're going to give it some seasoning. This is Steak and Chop. This is from Weber. It works pretty well. Evenly coat it. And then we're going to give it some Montreal seasoning. Make sure that evenly coats the steak. Usually you mix them all together in one, but I just wanted to do 3 different dishes so you guys can see the different seasonings that are going to go into that. While that steak's cooking, we're going to work on the shallot butter. So we're also going to heat a second cast iron pan. We're going to do the same thing with this, make sure it gets a higher heat. A cool trick with this is to actually get scallions, and you're going to have shallots. Shallots aren't red onions. They look like red onions, but they're smaller. They're a hybrid. They have a more mellow flavor. They aren't as strong. But when you have the scallions, and the shallot mixture. It gives a oniony taste, but it's not very, very strong. So the cool trick with the, not shallots, scallions, is you can actually cut them right about here. They say about 8 inches high. You pop them in an inch of water. Everyone likes free food. Let that sit for a week. That sucker will grow back to where it was, just right here, in about a week's time. So they say it grows about an inch a day, which is pretty nice. And you're gonna want to finely chop this, just like we did with our scallions. So these have a little more of a mellow flavor. They aren't as strong as the red onion. Well, scallions are actually, so it goes shallots and then scallions and then red onion. The red onion's a very pungent taste. The scallions are not as strong. So what we're going to do is the pan's looking like it's getting a little bit hot. We got a little bit of smoke going. Our steak's still going at it. We still want that crust. Go ahead and get the grease all on the sides and make sure all that crust is nice and even. We've already seasoned that steak, especially with the pretzel salt. Very important. Pretzel salt works great. So we're going to put some clarified butter. Again, you can use coconut oil for this, but it's going to add the coconut flavor. A lot of people, they say, don't like coconut as much. I don't blame them. It's okay. I'm not a super fan of coconut, but it's alright. Alright, so we can go ahead and let that sit. Get up to temperature. Once you start seeing that smoke, that's what you need to look for. You need to make sure it's evenly coated. Now we're going to throw our scallions and shallots in there. Make sure it evenly coats the pan. We're going to salt this. It's about a tablespoon of salt, or a teaspoon of salt we're adding to this. Salt's always killer in the seasoning and everything you do. Salt and pepper are usually #1 go-tos. Also add about a teaspoon of pepper. And you're going to let those sit there. They usually call it the Maillard's reaction. It's going to give it a good crust, and it's going to bring out a lot of the flavors that normally wouldn't just happen if it was just sitting. So while those two are cooking, that seasoning, we're going to cook that down just a little bit. You want to simmer it on a medium to high. While the steak, you want high heat. High is always good for that. Excess. Now we're going to cut the tomato for the caprice salad. You want to cut them about a ½ inch. That way it has good texture, not too thin, not too thick. That way the flavor is spread evenly through on our salad. A lot of people can eat these, but we're presenting this, so you kind of don't want to throw it on the plate, so kind of put that on the side. The type of cheese we're going to use on this is Belgioso, fresh mozzarella. You can use regular mozzarella, but not as good as the fresh. You've got to do fresh. So you're going to put one, and so on. And you're going to have the caprice salad run all the way down the plate. An important thing that you see with this plate is that we have a rim. You don't want the food to overpass that rim. You want to have a plate size. That's how you choose your plate size. That's the reason for the rim. I learned that watching a culinary show, and it definitely opened your eyes, because I saw some restaurants where they actually serve you small plates and the food's bulging over and you spill your food all over the table. I wouldn't want to see food off the table, especially if they haven't cleaned it. So we need to stir the onions a little bit. We haven't touched the steak yet, but we're going to get ready to touch it in a few. What we're going to do to deglaze that is we're going to use a nice white wine. You can use different types. You can use a red wine, but I find the white wine works the best with this. It's going to be about 2 tablespoons worth. As soon as you put that on, you want to turn the heat off, let that simmer. Go ahead and check your steak. It looks like we got maybe 30 more seconds, maybe a minute, sitting on that and leave it there. Now we're going to take a stick of butter. You can cut it in two or leave it plain, but we got a small bowl, so we're going to cut it in two. Put that in the bowl. Get your fresh made sauteed scallions. You're going to put a little bit of lemon juice in it in a second, but let's get these in over here. So that's going to melt the butter. That's going to make a creamy sauce. It's called a shallot butter. You can refrigerate that for later. Good on everything. Steak, eggs, chicken, anything you want. It'll look like this in the fridge, but as soon as you cook it up, it'll look killer. You'll see it a little bit later. So let's go ahead and mix this around. Spread the heat from the onions, allow that to melt the butter into a sauce. Add a little bit of lemon juice. Usually it comes out to about half teaspoon to a teaspoon. And the steak, it looks like it needs split. You can come over here and see. You have a little bit of browning on the outside. That's what you need to look for. You're going to take this moment of truth. Look at that crust. You want a crust? You can only, if you could hear the sound over the, or if we could just pause the steam, you can tap it, and it makes it almost sounds like a rock. That's how you get that crust, is with the high heat and pretzel salt. Kills it with the crust, and also with the clarified butter. The reason you use clarified butter and not regular butter, high smoke point, so it doesn't give that burnt taste, but it also has the saturated fat, is what you're looking for. Just that melt in your mouth. Back to the caprice. Let's finish plating these guys. Give that guy just a little bit here. Don't need one. I guess we can use one more. Waste not, want not. Why not? So now the steak, we got the crust going. We can go ahead and lower it. Now let it cook through. Depending on how you want it. If you want it rare, go ahead, take it off. Start eating it. If you want it medium, let it sit for a couple more minutes. For well, let it sit for a couple more minutes. Medium. In between that, you can use a thermometer, but I've been doing this long enough where I can just look at it and know, okay, it's done. So now what we're going to do, we got the tomato caprice lined up. We're going to take a strawberry. This is just for looks. If you're just eating it, who cares? Just slice it up. We're going to fan the strawberry. Give it a nice look. Basically cut all the way down to the bottom, but not through. You cut it through, you won't be able to fan it. So we're going to cut down, fan it out. Put one there. Make sure you bunch the leaves back so you can get a good look on it. Do thin slices. You don't want them thick or too thin, because if they're too thin, then they'll break apart. If they're thick, they won't fan out enough, and if they're just right, then they'll make the perfect fan strawberry. So now what you're going to do, you have that, you're going to take a little bit of balsamic glaze. I use the raspberry glaze. I like raspberry. Raspberry and strawberry, good hit. First, put some crumbled feta on that. Put one layer of crumbled feta. Put a little bit on the strawberries as well. Take a little bit of arugula. Whoops, drop some in the cheese. Now we're going to take the raspberry glaze. Make smooth motions like so. And run it across. It makes for a good look. Looks like we need one more piece of arugula right there. Put a little more sauce on it. I like a lot of this stuff. They call this cracking here. So now what we're going to do is, we got the freezy, we got the shallot butter, give it a little more stir. Looks like it's still trying to melt that butter. Usually a lot of times you can leave it at room temperature, that way it melts better. Or another thing is put it on hot skillet. This is also why I like cast iron, because the skillet still stays hot without using heat. I like to save money, so I don't even have to use extra gas. I can just use the leftover heat. Now we're going to pay some attention to this steak. The steak, we got the crust, we got the flavor, and the only thing missing is that cheese. I like to use Asiago. You can use a blend of different cheeses, but Asiago, I like the flavor of it. It tastes great. You can put a little bit on the pan, a little bit on the steak, and after you do that, shut it off. Let it just sit there. Don't touch it. Let the cheese melt. Let it get that crust. The type of Asiago I use is Belgioso. Same thing. Same as the mozzarella. They both taste great. Now we're going to come back over to the plate. Make sure the plate's nice and dry. Make sure there's no excess pieces. You want a nice presentation when you're serving meals to guests. So you pick a nice knife, a nice fork. Those both work. Nice wooden look. And now the steak, we got the crust going. On top of the steak, it looks like it still needs a little bit of time. We'll let it sit there. Our shallot butter is starting to melt a little better now that we got it over some heat. Looks a little clumpy, but trust me, as soon as you put it on that steak, it'll melt like butter. That's what it mostly is anyways. Who doesn't like butter? So that looks like it's getting a little bit better. We'll go ahead and plate the steak. We'll actually just bring the skillet over there so you guys can see it. Let's get rid of this. Always do the pot holder on a cast iron pan. Those suckers always get hot. Gotta be careful with it. Burn your hands, man. Get you some calluses quick. So now what we're going to do, take the steak off. Love that sear. You got some nice cheese crust if you want. You can make it look fancy. Put it over these guys. People will look at it and wow. They'll say, how did you do that? Yeah, you just drop cheese on a hot pan. It works great. Put a little bit on that. Don't throw this stuff away. This is crack. This stuff is killer. Throw it right on top of the steak. Best thing you'll ever do. It'll also melt that extra cheese. Looks burnt, it ain't burnt. Trust me, it don't even taste burnt. Tastes killer. Just adds to the flavor. Now we got the steak here. Position it just right in the middle. Make sure it looks nice. Looking for the presentation. We're gonna go ahead and take it over here. We're gonna add some shallot butter right on top of it. Make sure it's nice and stirred up. You don't want it clumpy, but don't worry, it's a hot steak. It'll cool up. Put a couple tablespoons. I like a lot. Load it up, man. That's what I say. Look at that. That sucker's killer. Too bad you guys don't have smell-o-vision. My mouth is watering, man. Alright, here we go. There you go. That's your Asiago crusted steak with tomato caprice. You do have two options. You can serve this on a romaine lettuce, which is the gluten-free option. Or you can toast it or put it on a toasted brioche bun or French bread. Those both work. Just set it right on top of that, and there you guys go. Enjoy. You gotta listen to this crust. Listen. I don't know if you can hear it. We'll try. You hear that? That's crust right there. Look. Taps hard. You think it was the bone? Yeah, think again. No bone. Look at that. I like mine well done, but that's just me. Oh my goodness. It's like chips on top of steak. So good. Thanks for watching.